welcome to Intro to Functional Programming in Haskell. In this final episode, we're going to be going over the final project that is detailed at the end of Haskell book, the fingered client. The book actually details many of the steps to complete this project, or hints at things very clearly. While the book does lay out many things fairly clearly, it does not actually detail a makefile. It just gives you several different commands to run this program in several different ways. They are summarized in this makefile here. The book actually details how to build up a working Cabal file for this project. The information here lets the program know how to run in debug mode and in full execution. Setup.hs is the file that runs the main function, and the previous fingered Cabal file lets it know what the default main function is. Now this program will accept telnet connections and answer queries about users of the system. Now, rather than actually pulling information from the operating system, we're going to have to actually build an artificial SQLite database and return answers to queries to the database instead, because the fingered protocol in general is not supported due to security issues. So this file simply details several SQL queries that we might execute on the database. This function sets up a table within the SQLite database. This function can be used to insert a user. This can allow us to see all the users, and this can allow us to fetch the information about a particular user. User.hs describes what our idea or model of a user actually is, and allows us to build up a user type instance from information returned by the database. Now the main function is where all the magic happens. Up top we have some configuration variables defined. At the bottom of this file we can see the main function. The main function can run in two modes. If a command line argument of init is applied, the main function runs the create database command. Otherwise, it'll check if a command line argument of run is applied and then run the run server function. Otherwise, it'll simply print out invalid command and exit the program. If the program runs in init mode, it runs the create database function. Create database opens a SQLite connection to a SQLite database of fingered.db, which simply creates a fingered.db file if it does not already exist, and executes the queries that we previously saw that essentially initialize a table in the database and fill in some information. As a matter of fact, create database goes ahead and initializes a row with this information. When the program is told to run, it runs the run server function. The run server function essentially continues running and listens for connections, and it actually, upon receiving connections, decides to handle the queries it sends in. Queries are handled by examining the message that is sent with them. A query is either totally blank, in which case we assume that the client wants a full list of users in our database, or the message may contain a name, in which case we assume that the client has knowledge of a user on our system and wants information about that user. The return users function simply connects to the SQLite database, runs the correct query to get all of the usernames, and then sends that list of username back to the client. Return user queries the database for rows where the username matches the supplied username, and assuming it finds that user on the system, returns the information about that user to the client and closes the connection. So let's look at this in action. First, we turn on the fingered daemon on the server, essentially, on our machine. And then, in another terminal, we can query for the list of available users, which I've initialized 2 different users in the local database. So, over on the server, we see that we got a connection, and it got a message that only had the blank /r/n, or new line, in it. Over on the client over here, we see that we got returned a list of usernames. A username rcook and a username Michael are available on the system. So we can again query the server for information about Michael. Again, we see that the server got a connection, saw that it was looking for a username of Michael, and then returned information about Michael, his username, his actual name, his home directory, and the directory to his shell.